The newest characters like Eula and Kazuha have something in common that might just influence the ones that are coming from Inazuma, and there's a few things that need to be addressed in this video. If you've been an active member in Genshin community, you've probably noticed the discussion point that comes up with every new character. Will they be the next Venti, Zhonli, Ganyu, or even Hu Tao to a lesser extent? There's always that comparison that pops into a lot of people's heads, and while it's not an issue in itself, it does actually say something about the state of the game and some of the people's expectations. So when you have someone like Eula show up that's not exactly game-breaking or master of everything, you'd expect some sort of an uproar, but surprisingly, Mihoyo actually made a choice that manages to please several groups of players, which in all honesty, that's probably one of the best outcomes you can get with every new character. And it was pretty simple. People who love combo characters get to enjoy playing as one and land a powerful burst attack that rewards their skill, while the whales get to have fun with incredible constellations that each brings something new to the table, with the last one giving them a sandbox to play with a damage number in the millions. Now, if this was a one-time accomplishment, then there would be no video talking about this. However, now that Kazuha has settled in nicely with a lot of people, anyone who plays him had to notice just how well and tight his gameplay mechanics are, not to mention the awesome verticality you get to enjoy with his elemental skill. And of course, most people started to compare him to Venti or asking themselves, is he better than the Lazy Bard, while others considered his perks compared to Sucrose, which again is an absolutely normal thing to do, but even those making that comparisons probably noticed that while you can measure the damage numbers, the internal cooldowns and the elemental gauges and whatnot, one factor that came out from some of the conclusions was that Kazuha, in fact, is an extremely fun character to play with. But it's obvious that fun is a very subjective thing that differs from a person to person and might not appeal to everyone in the same way. Still, as long as some people are starting to realize that this is a part of the deal you're getting with a 5-star, then maybe this is something that Mihoyo is trying to accomplish in the long run. After all, we just click with some characters and we'll use them no matter what, and it doesn't even have to do anything with gameplay. Just look at some of the communities that get formed before the character is even out, which can get as ridiculous as waiting for nearly a year. So even if potentially a character will not be groundbreaking in terms of damage output, making sure to give them a fun gameplay loop instead could be the way to combat the problematic nature of power creep. Still, it's not like the original gameplay mechanics haven't been developed previously, and probably the best example would be Child, where a good number of revenue reports reveal his banner not only didn't do so well during the first time he got released in 1.1 update, but also during his rerun in 1.4. Now you could say that the part of the reason why he got the short end of the stick was because he was going up against Zhonli and Venti banners, but even then, we don't know for sure what was the real problem, since only Mihoyo has the detailed analytics to determine the possible cause, but it's likely because of the way Child is quite complex and has had a very negative response due to his constellations being very important to his performance. So maybe Mihoyo got spooked and resorted to releasing series of powerful characters like Ganyu and Hu Tao, but that's just a speculation at best, although the patterns of their recent characters suggest that they're taking it very seriously when it comes to refined gameplay. After all, this isn't their first gig, and their other title, Honkai Impact, actually contains a lot of cool characters with unique and spectacular combat, so they aren't strangers when it comes to making a Genshin character fully fleshed out. But this is not revealing the full picture of what's happening right now with Genshin, because having a good gameplay design for a character isn't the only thing that has been prominent lately, and the next thing that we need to take a look at would be the appeal of the other side that has been keeping this game alive for so long. If starting a trend of new characters that have interesting and fun gameplay, but also come with their own set of problems is the way Mihoyo is handling this, what about their constellations, or more importantly, the whales who keep the game going strong? Because one common criticism you will hear about the standard pool of characters is that a lot of their constellations feel underwhelming to say the least, like Chi-Chi getting more damage increase even though she's more suited to be a supportive healer instead of running around with her tiny sword and slashing enemies as her main damage dealer, while others like Diluc overcome their limits with their last constellation. But then there's Mona, who suddenly gains a boost to her charge attack, which honestly seems baffling and doesn't actually provide a useful increase in damage due to how you need to power up this final constellation ability you're given. And even some of the limited characters like Venti and his first constellation feel more like a big fat joke than an upgrade, which might be fitting for a lazy bard like him, but the same cannot be said about Hu Tao, who literally removes an important stopper, which is her charge attack stamina issues if you get her first constellation. Point is, these constellation upgrades are all over over the place. Some are good, some extremely potent, and then there's a few that just makes you scratch your head instead. Which brings us back to Eula and Kazuha, the two newest 5 stars released in the game, which actually managed to overcome the problematic nature of constellations. And that mainly has to do with the fact they actually feel like they work right out of the box, you don't get limited too much by their own setbacks, and the constellations themselves act more like a path to make them stronger. For example, Kazuha's first constellation slightly reduces his elemental skill cooldown, but more importantly, the downtime will get reset once you activate his burst, which essentially gives you a double elemental skill to activate within a single damage rotation, which helps him out with not just energy recharge due to gaining more particles, but he also delivers even more swirls and damage. Now for a first constellation, that's pretty amazing what you're getting out of it, but the beauty of it is that you can actually do this already with a sacrificial sword, although the timing is different and not guaranteed unlike the constellation itself, but it just so happens the weapon is actually very good for him, and you can easily run it with sacrificial sword as a way to compensate for not having the first constellation. Or how about the next one? It basically dumps 200 elemental mastery on everyone after using his burst, which is a great way to boost his own passive for more elemental damage in your team, as well as enable stronger reactions for his teammates. And this is coming from an account that has a C0 Kazuha and only first constellation unlocked for Eula due to getting lucky with wishing, and before it got activated, a lot of gameplay sessions went through with just her C0 performance before flipping the switch on the constellation. Now it did make her deal more damage due to how it works, but it wasn't drastic enough, so it just felt like a reasonable power bump after you get an additional copy of her. Finally, if you go all the way up and unlock their last constellations, the whales basically get to enjoy either having Kazuha as their main damage dealer or Eula scoring 7-figure damage numbers, which in all honesty, if you're dropping on average $1,500 just to max out a character, there's gotta be some sort of an incentive if the game is already using the gacha system model. But a middle ground needs to be found. A free-to-play player saving up for months just to unlock a 5-star deserves just as much of attention as someone who is a high-paying customer that maxes out character constellations, because both of these players matter for the game's success. So in essence, it seems to be that at least Eula and Kazuha are set on the right track when trying to please different types of players, so it's really important to see that the game continues to bring new characters with great design out of the box, and constellations that don't just randomly make things super strong or super irrelevant, and instead have a nice power progression that feels rewarding with each new constellation unlocked. But this brings us to the last and most important part of the video. What is it that we should be expecting from the upcoming Inazuma characters? How much of an influence does the Holy Trinity actually have when it comes to new character releases? Do you just simply sit and wait around until the next Venti or Zhonli or Coco Goat banner rerun gets announced? Or is it instead just compulsive behavior that gets magnified once someone like Ayaka shows up as the next banner on your wishing menu? Think about it. What if these new Inazuma characters aren't going to be game-breaking and instead more or less be on the same power level as Eula or Kazuha or even the often forgotten Albedo, who might just have a gimmick or maybe an interesting gameplay loop and some good constellations to boost them up, but other than that, what if they aren't going to be the next Venti, Zhongli, or Ganyu? In fact, let's not forget that 4 stars do exist, and over the course of Genshin's history, we've only had few of them show up, which all fit nicely into a single party as of now, but considering everything, Diona and Yanfei stuck to one role, while Xinyan and Rosaria basically worked the same, except their support damage was different, and with Inazuma coming, new 4 stars will be even more important than ever, considering a lot of people will be returning to the game just to explore the islands, as well as tons of new beginners joining in due to massive marketing you should expect from such a large-scale update. So what exactly are we getting at? Well, the player base is always going to be shifting and changing, new people coming in, old ones leaving, and while keeping the torch for some of these very powerful characters is going to be a thing for a while, maybe Mihoyo focusing on fleshing out characters' fun side and giving powerful constellations is the future of the game, and if Inazuma doesn't deliver a stupidly broken Ayaka, but instead a fun-to-play Ayaka with some strong constellations, then perhaps this is the way of escaping the power creep almost every gacha game ends up stuck with. After all, Genshin Impact basically redefined what a gacha game is, and a massive number of people got exposed to this type of model, so what's to say that this company cannot innovate and find a way to make characters appealing not just with their damage numbers? Most importantly, it doesn't get mentioned often enough, but please make sure to play this game with extreme caution when it comes to the gacha system, because no matter how good or fun a constellation is or the character itself, always make sure your financial well-being is the first priority before anything else. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and enable the bell notifications on, and don't forget to gently press the like button, which helps out massively and makes it more easy to create more videos in the future. Thanks for watching and see you very soon.